All right, evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock, and I would like to call this Monday, November 27th meeting, regular meeting of Kimberley City Council to order, held here on the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. Do we have any late items, Maurice?
There's no late items, Mr. Mayor.
All right, hearing none, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor McBain moves, Councillor Royer seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have adoption of the minutes of the council and of the regular meeting of council held on October the 23rd. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire moves, Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, first up tonight, we have a delegation. We have Danica here again from WildSafe BC to give us our latest update on goings on. Welcome, Danica.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again for the 8th year.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, very excited to be here and report out on the 2023 events. So just wait till the presentation's up and running. But yeah, I'd like to recognize that we live and play on the traditional Ktunaxa territory. So yeah, next slide. Oh, right. I don't know if I pressed the right button.
Which button?
The arrow. Okay.
You're kidding me.
Well, oh, perfect. There we go. So yeah,
did
just
Okay, we'll control it from here. Just say next slide, Danica.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, WildSafe BC is a branch out of the British Columbia Conservation Foundation, and we're the leading organization in preventing human to wildlife conflict. And here's just a little bit of a summary from this year. Normally there are higher numbers in some of these areas. However, the city requested that they wanted to work towards Bear Smart status. So we took some of the regular working hours and I worked on about a 64-page report with a bear working group. We met twice this year and we will meet up again in the spring. So basically the draft is on its way to the provincial level of WildSafe BC, just for some editing and everything. So it'll be ready in the spring for review. Another thing that's holding it up is we decided to put out a social science study so that the members of the community can just let us know how they feel about bears. We are focusing on black bears on this report, but I can touch base a little bit further in the presentation. Next slide, please. So garbage tagging is part of the program, and every year I go out multiple times, different seasons, spring, summer, and fall. This year I went out 11 times, and you will not see composting in this as I didn't focus on that just because it was new and we wanted to, you know, give the residents a little bit of a break here while they learn. And the ambassador, the potential ambassador next year will work with WildSafe BC to better the education piece behind composting and detractants. Good news is that we did not have as many bear reports in the last year, even with the addition to composting. So congrats to the Kimberley residents on that. So yeah, there was a lot of recycling out compared to the years prior, although it wasn't a point of focus for garbage tagging in the past, but this year the city asked to create a new little sticker for the garbage and included recycling and composting. So that was developed this year. Yeah, so basically July is the highest month, as you can see on this graph, but there wasn't as many repeat offenders, which is a huge success. So education is getting out there, and people are not putting their garbage back onto the curb. So that's excellent news. It was just more new people to towns, people like who maybe like Airbnb, stuff like that, that weren't really aware of bylaw. So next year we'll focus on how do we get that messaging across. Next slide, please. So this is where I'm going to jump to the bear hazard assessment. Unfortunately, the RAP line dispatcher, well, it's a good thing that they've updated their system, but it correlates with our wildlife alert reporting program, and they forgot to connect the upgrade to our program. So that's in the works right now and should be done this December. So I went back all the way till 2014 and created a graph and some numbers, but 2023's numbers will be added in December. But I got off the phone with Jim Malenka, Sergeant, the conservation officer today, and both him and I agree that bear reports are much lower. And so you'll probably see around about 80 to 85 calls instead of 115, which is awesome. Part of this, we believe, is because we had focused on a wildlife alert reporting program and RAP campaign to educate the public to make the calls so that we were aware. And I think that's just kind of the cap, and now we'll see it level off. You can see that the number of, the type of encounter, a lot of it's food condition. So that again is part of the reason why we have this bear hazard assessment. The bear hazard assessment basically focuses on all the attractants in the community. And once that's finished and approved by the bear committee, it's going to direct bear management plan. So next slide, please. Part of the bear hazard assessment, I went around all of the areas in the community and graphed, like I just like on my phone, like ping, 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 marked all the attractants from fruit trees to garbage, to compost, to dumpsters, to grease bins. And that is also with the province at the moment. Kamloops, they're trying to put it all up on a graph or a map. But basically, I put current risk and future predicted risk. If the program didn't continue, if there wasn't that education, and other things like if we continue to have fruit trees that community members aren't actually using, just stuff like that. So that would be the predicted future risk. Other things that the Bear the Bear Working Group has directed me, because it's a community-led committee. I just sit and basically delegate things to myself mainly, but other things that we worked on was we all know that around the mountain there was that event with the bear, and if you don't, it was a black bear that left charged quite a few people in around the mountain. That was a young sow with new cubs. We believe it was her first set of cubs. So just things like working with the Kimberley Trail Society on a recreator pledge, signage, stuff like that. The Lois Creek Trail Society. They are really active. They've created their own signage with WildSafe BC's messaging. They have a presentation tomorrow, but they'll be getting the same presentation as the Trail Society. So other things like the business pledge, which helps Kimberley get Bear Smart status. So there was 32 businesses that had signed on that needed renewals. So they all signed back up, and then one other business signed on. And kudos again to the Bavarian Home Hardware for collecting the bear spray. because there's nowhere in Kimberley that that you can dispose of bear spray. So we work with them to pick it up and bring it to the transfer station in Cranbrook. One other big one that I think actually Sue mentioned was the safe storage of attractants like garbage bins and recycling. So we're working with the province to create funding for the city to, and not just Kimberley, cities around the province, but Kimberley is included. So basically, the province is applying for funding. There was 50 people. The city's going to get funding to provide 50 residents a 50-50 cost share program. So the proposal is still being worked on, but hopefully that'll be done by the spring. So basically they'll just come to the city, or the city can direct them to WildSafe, and they bring us our receipt and we'll cost share them 50% back of the whatever they do, whether they put a cement block in, they need chains, ratchet straps, anything that will help better secure their attractants. And next slide, please.
So these rates of higher.
Yep.
Are these indicative of? Are these indicative of bears moving through the committee or the community, I should say?
So it could be that. It could be like green space. It could just be that there was more bins out that year. There's higher, areas of, problem areas. So neighbors not picking their fruit trees and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So a combination
Yeah,
of search of food.
Yeah.
But eventually they leave.
exactly. And we were really lucky this year. It was a good year for berries and food. So that on top of what I believe is in the past we've seen sows with cubs, and then those male cubs growing up in town, and those male boars, like they're not territorial, but they do have home ranges, so that would knock out some of the other younger male boars. They would go find out home ranges elsewhere, and I think that's why we're not seeing as many come through. So it's just kind of the same boars around, not as many coming in, because the
Right.
subdominant bears would give in and go up
Awesome.
into the bush. And thanks to our funders, of course. Any other questions?
Who are your funders?
We have the City of Kimberley, we have City of Cranbrook, CBT, the province, MOE, so the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Forests, and the Regional District of East Kootenay.
All right. Councillor Royer, go ahead.
I just have a couple comments. I was one of the recipients around the mountain. I challenged the bear.
Ah,
So I'm just letting you know, if I had carried a bear spray with me, would that have repelled the bear, or would she have stuck around for her cubs? I'm just curious about that.
a lot of different factors into that, because every bear is different, of course. I believe that bear did actually move on, well, like further into the trails on John Travoltage, but she was being defensive. So defensive behavior, which you experienced, depends on how close you get. If you actually got the bear with the bear spray, because bear spray is used in the moment when it hits the bear. If it would have hit the ground and heated up, it would have smelled like a pepper, and she would have probably came and rolled into the grass because it smells like peppers.
Further?
Yeah, so one more thing which I want to comment is really important. And if you have apples left in your apple tree, that's a very common thing for bear attraction. I mean, it seems like Blanchemont has a lot of apple trees, ornament apple trees. I'm one of them. And if you don't pick your apple trees, expect bears to come around. So thank you for mentioning that. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And Wild Sight, not Wild Safe BC, but they have a gleaning program, apple capture. So there's free volunteers to come pick your apples, and just if you can share the messaging that there are resources out there and they are free.
Further, council? No, actually. Yeah, that's all right. So thanks very much, Danica. Really appreciate you coming and giving us the update tonight. We'll see you again, will we?
April 2024.
Yeah, awesome. We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks. No problem.
All right. We have a number of financial bylaws for first three readings to go through next. The first up is the Kimberley Sewer Rates and Regulations bylaw. And the motion on the floor is the council give first, second, and third readings to this particular bylaw. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. Jim, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, council and anybody that tuned in last Monday heard me talk for a couple hours on this stuff. I provided a lot of detail at that point in time, and that presentation is actually going to be on Engage Kimberley later this week if anybody's interested. But just to these bylaws, the first one, as the mayor noted, is the Kimberley Sewer Rates and Regulations bylaw. So what's being proposed to allow us to proceed with the 5-year financial plan bylaw and ensure we've got sufficient cash flow in the sewer fund to fund not only operating but also reserve contributions in order to fund the capital plan. We're proposing a 5-year or a 5% increase in 2024 and in each year of the 5-year plan. We revisit the rates annually, so if things change next year, we could change either increase or decrease that, but it's 5% for 2024, effective January 1st is what's being proposed. The financial impact of that to a single family residential dwelling, we bill quarterly, so that represents an increase of about $5.46 per quarter for the average home, which provides about $108,000 in additional revenue. About 2% of that increase will go to funding inflationary increases within the operating fund itself. And about 3% of that will be going towards reserve contributions in order to fund capital over the next 5 years.
All right, excellent. Council, questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the solid waste regulations and fees bylaw. Motion on the floor is the council give first, second, and third reading. Sorry, jumped ahead. Gremlins. Well, we could have done that one first, technically. You guys are sticklers for process. All right, well, at council's pleasure, we will do the waterworks rates and regulation bylaw. And the motion on the floor is the council give first, second, and third readings to this particular bylaw. Councillor McGuire moves. Councillor Karen seconds. Any comment?
Again, just briefly, Mr. Mayor. So similar to the sewer rates, we're proposing that the water rates be increased by 5% this year for the flat rates that apply to residences and businesses. And we're also proposing an increase to the bulk water rates. Primary users of bulk water are Tech and the RCR for the ski hill for their snowmaking efforts, and also in the summertime on the golf course, Trickle Creek. So a 15% increase proposed to the bulk water rates. Just to provide some context to that, 5% increase to the residential rates increases it's $6.21 is what that translates to on the average or on the single family home. And the increase to the bulk water rates of 15% will give us about another $10,900 a year. And that'll be split between Tech and RCR.
And same as with the other 2% for inflation, 3% for reserves?
Very similar to that, yeah.
All right. Council, questions or comments? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the solid waste regulations and fees bylaw. Motion on the floor is that council give first, second, and third readings to this particular bylaw. Councillor Royer moves. Councillor Roberts seconds. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the solid waste function, we've seen some fairly significant enhancements to that service over the last year or two. We've implemented curbside recycling and also more recently curbside organics collection. So this is just essentially fine tuning those rates. The composting, as it just started in August, we're going to leave those rates as they are for a year, just so we can get a feel for what that service is going to look like. We've got some minor adjustments to the garbage collection and recycling. Those net out to a 36 cent increase. So all three of those services combined, the garbage, recycling, and composting, the annual fees for those are $105, which works out to $8.77 a month. We bill quarterly at $26.31.
All right, council, questions or comments? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the 5-year financial plan bylaw, amendment number 1 for consideration of the first 3 readings. Could I have a mover? Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Royer seconds. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the 2023 to 27 5-year financial plan bylaw was adopted May 8th of 2023. As we progress through the year and new and better information becomes available, potentially some new grant programs come online that allow us to get some more projects done, we end up modifying or amending the 5-year financial plan, and that's permitted through the community charter. It can be amended at any time throughout the year. So starting in shortly after the adoption of the 5-year financial plan bylaw, there have been a number of resolutions passed by council directing staff to make amendments to the 5-year financial plan. So this is just a culmination of all of those recommendations. So all of these changes are funded either through increases in grant revenue or transfers from reserves. So none of this impacts the amount of tax collection required. It primarily relates to capital projects that when we went out for tender on these projects, the bids came in different than what we had anticipated through the budget. But yeah, so this is just formalizing all the changes that council had provided over the course of the year.
All right, excellent. Council, comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Second piece of this motion is that council authorize staff to undertake the requisite advertising prior to bringing the bylaw back for consideration of adoption. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Royer seconds. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have the establishment of the Growing Communities Fund Reserve. And the motion on the floor is that council give first, second, and third readings to the Growing Communities Fund Reserve Establishment Bylaw. And we'll have Krista explain that to us what that is right after we have a mover. Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor McBain seconds. Welcome, Krista. Thank you for
Mr.
being
Mayor.
here tonight.
Thank you.
This is somewhat new. I think we've heard about the fund. I think we might have gotten a check already a while ago.
That is correct.
And so what are we doing?
So the city of Kimberley received just over 3.4 million from the province of BC for the Growing Communities Fund. The province established this fund to help support BC communities invest in infrastructure and amenities for growing populations. So one of the conditions of this grant funding is that the city set aside the money in a specified reserve as outlined by section 188 of the community charter. So we are bringing forward to you the Growing Communities Fund Reserve Establishment Bylaw. Within that bylaw, it stipulates the eligible projects that these funds can be used for. And during future budget deliberations, how these funds can be best utilized will be discussed. So while we are already have these funds set aside in the separate bank account and are tracking and allocating the associated interest, we are looking to have, once this bylaw is adopted, it'll further formalize the process.
Right, awesome. Thanks, Krista. So there is quite a list of areas for eligibility. So I don't think we'll have any problems coming up with good projects to spend the money on for sure. Council, questions or comments? I have one other. Is there a time frame? Like, do we have to spend this money within a certain period of time or
They are expecting the funds to be used within 5 years.
a 5-year period? Okay, awesome. Okay, last call for questions. Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thanks very much, Krista.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I make a quick comment? I
Go
just,
ahead.
for the public that's watching us tonight, we have quickly gone through a huge number of bylaw acceptances and moving. I just want to remind everybody that might be watching that prior to this meeting, we have gone over every one of those in depth over about a 3 or 4 hour period. And so while it may appear that we don't show any interest, the bottom line is we've seen it all and heard it all before. Just want to point that out.
Actually, it's great, great comment, Sandra. During the, and it's probably noteworthy at this point that every other week from now until probably February or March, we'll be having financial deliberations. The finance department will be coming forward with all kinds of budget recommendations and requests. And at that particular meeting, we go through it in a fairly high level of detail. So when it comes to the regular meeting, when we're actually doing the adoption, it does move fairly quickly. But as you pointed out, there is a lot of work and conversation that does go on prior to these motions being put forward. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not, yeah, let's not go there. Okay, next up, we have a development variance permit for 249 Stemwinder Drive. And the motion on the floor is that council approve the development variance permit. Councilor McGuire moves and Councilor Royer seconds. Troy, anything further to report on this one?
There. Sorry about that. Nothing really to add here, just to follow up. This was reviewed at the last meeting and council gave direction to give notice to neighbors, which was done a couple of days after the last meeting. No correspondence has been received to this application. So staff is recommending that we move forward and approve the requested variances.
All right, council, questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilor Roberts.
If you don't mind, Troy, are we accepting the building as is or are we requiring changes with this variance?
We're not requiring any changes to the building other than they'll be closing it. It's partially constructed right now, awaiting the outcome of the variance. So if the variance is approved, then they'll finish the construction there. Yeah.
Further? All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we have, next up, we have several notices on title to deal with. We'll do these one at a time. And the first is 190 Spokane Street. And the motion on the floor is that council, pardon me, council direct the corporate officer to file notice with the BC Land Title Office stating resolution as identified in the report. I'm assuming council has read through all of this. If not, we can go over it again, but we'll reference the report. Could I have a mover? Councilor Royer moves. Councilor Karen seconds. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just remind council that again at the last meeting we had a bit of an overview presentation on the notice on title process, just as a bit of a reminder and a learning opportunity for some of council. It's been a while since we've seen some of these requests come forward. But in terms of, so if there's any further questions to that regard, I'm happy to help with that. Andy Christie, our building official, is here with me tonight to help answer any questions that may arise from these 5 requests for notice on title. And I'll just also point out that I know for sure the property owner of one of, or the first couple of items here for 190 Spokane Street and 220 Spokane Street is here tonight and may want to have a word on either application.
Yeah, awesome. You want to speak to it?
Yep.
Just,
Okay, step up to the podium, please.
yeah, I guess I probably owe Andy an apology more so than you guys is applying for permits in Alberta. If they kind of apply for them and they lapse over 2 years, they just wipe them out. So I guess to my own ignorance, no offense, Andy. Andy's been a exceptional help for me as a property owner in this town that's owns a building that's approximately 120 years old. The other buildings that I purchased here, if anybody remembers, the Bovine building. When I purchased it, it had a waterfall happening in the inside of it. So Andy graciously has kind of helped me through this. And I think my own lacks, which I will apologize to everybody right now, is I've applied for permits. I've never acted on some of them just due to COVID, BC work space coming in and demanding that I do way more abatement than probably what was needed for the age of my building. But nonetheless, it was a perfect storm for about 5 years, kind of helping carrying some of the commercial tenants I had, some of the residents that live in my building. I just kind of worked through it. So some of the projects I did stall, partly me standing up here. For the most part, I have tried to work with Andy and apply for probably more permits than what I've acted on. Where the 190 buildings at right now, I applied for a demolition permit, which was more or less brought on by the City of Kimberley Fire Department. We're trying to work with the tenant that I had in there. We went through a process of probably 3 to 4 years trying to get them to do renovations or upgrades to that space. To no prevail, we had no luck with that. Eventually, I had to evict the tenant just because it became more of a liability of the tenants that lived in the building. I could no longer have a Chinese restaurant, like not discriminatory. I just could not get to that point. So upon us evicting that nice gentleman, other than a demolition permit and, cleaning the space out, it's probably taken 3 years longer than I'd hoped to take for it. So we've kind of stalled it. I mean, if anybody sitting here would like to come and see where that's at, other than Andy probably being through it, we've done like no alterations or no renovations to it. So it's kind of at a standstill right now because as a 100-year-old building, you got to upgrade a boiler, which upgrades all the ducting, the plumbing, electrical, and all the rest of it. I have applied for electrical permits for any of the suites above it. When I gutted out the suite, I've kind of upgraded all the electrical because that was a flag thing by the City of Kimberley and my own insurance department. So part of my building, I guess, looking like a bit of an eyesore right now is the upgrades that are on the inside of the building take precedence to the outside. So it's like, no offense to curb appeal, but if my insurance or Andy or the fire department tell me this is a priority, it becomes a priority, and siding and curb appeal kind of takes the back seat if that's where it's at. So I guess I've been negligent getting these permits back in. I just thought if the electrical permit isn't being used at 220, which I'm sure I'm going to get called in a second, that's one of the permits which I'll probably come and say I've done nothing to it. Steve Herman applied for the permit. BC Hydro couldn't come out due to the COVID and the amount of people that had other services prior to mine, other than tearing the meter off to upgrade the mast on the back of my building. So it's kind of I don't know, the chicken and who crossed the road first. So I'm just kind of in this aqueous mess. Andy right now has been working with me and Dwayne to finish 220 to get it to like anything that was outstanding on it. I wanted that building complete with the exception of the mast being taken off the back of the building. I'm not sure if Luke applied or if we applied for a facade for the back of the building. That kind of got stalled because I can't do anything to the back of the building until that mast is moved. I can't take the dog houses off. I won't put anybody up there or put anybody in danger to trying to take 2 dog houses off and do any work until that mast is moved. So that's kind of where I guess I'm giving you guys other than poor Andy dealing with me and Dwayne, it's giving you guys a bird's eye view that I'm not like a derelict landlord. I'm trying to do the bigger things where maybe nobody sees it when you walk by the buildings, but the inside of these buildings have been brought up to speed with new boilers, electrical panels, smoke detectors, alarm systems, everything that kind of requires. So not that I'm upset that there's going to be something registered against my building. I'm kind of like, I don't get anything passed unless Andy or an electrical inspector comes out and passes anything. So,
Right.
so I'm kind of in that, yeah. So I just wanted to come today and say, you know, like kudos to Andy. Like, I mean, he's been a real asset for guys like me because no offense, trying to bring 120-year-old building up to BC codes, it's kind of like an evolving treadmill where I can't even keep up with it half the time. It's like, okay, that's changed. Okay. So then it's like, let's adapt that, and it's working. But I mean, Andy's done a fantastic job for us. So I do apologize if my building does look a little bit of an eyesore, but probably with the next year, it will take on. But I need to finish kind of the inside, and then I will apply to the city of Kimberley for
So,
development permit on the outside.
yeah, so the curb appeal isn't the issue here. And Andy, I think kind of per the report, we're talking about inspections and building permits. Can you maybe just, I think that's the core of the issue. Can one of you?
Yeah, I can just speak to that. Just, yeah, there's like say we're here tonight just because the regular building permit process has been exhausted. And like say, yeah, Monty's been working hard for years. This just sort of takes the section 57 just sort of takes us out of the bylaw now and kind of takes the stress of a time period for the business owner or building owner. And so like Monty, you have like much more time now to finish your
Oh, yeah.
project, not under the time pressure of a building permit.
No.
And so like, and it is fully removable, just so you're aware, council's aware that we have removed, I'd say, a good portion of the ones we placed in the city of Kimberley.
Yeah, the notice is only there until such time as
Correct, he
the
just has-
remedies
yeah.
for the building permits and inspections.
No, and I will,
Yeah.
like, probably like to my own negligence, and like I say, like dealing in Edmonton, I've let some of these lapse, and I just kind of went, well, they're done, and I gotta come back in, and I gotta pay 150 or 350 to, when Steve tells me I need to, for the permitting, and then once that project is done, but to like Andy working with me, it's like, okay, I gotta get the inside done because the existing electrical has passed all inspections, so I don't really care if the mast is still sitting there, like, and you want, fire rated glass and, certain items that I needed to bring, like make sure it was up to code. Like I had enough fire dampers in there for things. The HVAC was all brought up to speed. And so I was more concerned on the inside of it than the outside, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
no, that's cool. Once again, it's just really about the permits, Monty.
Yeah,
So I guess the remedy here is the notice on title, and at such time as in due course, you're able to remedy that, the notice will come off title.
can I then ask council or ask Andy, like some of the permits I've never acted on, can I get those stricken so that they're, like, I've done nothing with them, like,
I
moving a
think
mouse?
they've expired, have they not?
Correct.
So
Yeah,
then,
so they're done.
okay.
They've expired.
Yeah, there's nothing to remove now. Like they've run their course of the 2 years, and then we granted further renewals, and I granted a few
Yep.
more renewals than our bylaw permitted. But that's what I'm saying. We've kind of exhausted our normal channels, I would say, and then this just allows you that time-free period to finish your work.
I think what Andy just said and what you guys did, I just wanted to come here and let you guys know.
No,
that-
thank appreciate
Thank
it.
you for that. Appreciate you
and
taking the
I mean,
time.
I've been an active member in the community for, well, roughly owning different properties here for 35 years. So I've been connected to community, like Kimberley and the community. So
I'm sure we'll see each other again, Monty.
I've got really good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, and you're right, 220 we'll deal with next. This is strictly 190 Spokane Street. So are there any questions or comments, Council? Go ahead, Councilor McGuire.
So just for clarity, this is only for things that have been acted on, permits that have been acted on.
Yeah, traditionally the section 57s for any permits that are open and expired, and the work is incomplete.
Right.
And usually that work is related to something health or safety or fire oriented. So like siding and exterior finishes, I wouldn't be approaching council with a section 57 notice for incomplete cladding.
No, I'm just trying
Just
to
be
get
clear.
clarity on, Monty mentioned that there were some permits he hadn't acted on. So if somebody opens a permit and they don't act on it, that doesn't go on title.
Well, applying for the permit and then starting work as in demolition work is acting on.
Of course,
Permit.
yeah,
So then there would be work that has begun.
Yeah, I'm just making sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
yeah.
Thanks. That clarifies that. And then the other question I had was what kind of financial implications would be put on the property owner for removing this from title?
There's a one-time fee in our bylaw for removal of notice and title. And
Okay.
it's $500 for the one-time removal.
Yep.
Versus building permit renewal is $100. So
a little
almost
bit
in
more
this
expensive.
time period, he's going to get a discount on the removal. So
Okay, perfect.
there's a win-win there. So
Sounds like the cheapest thing I've done.
yeah, no, it's
All right.
actually, and like I say, it does work. The removal, we've had several this year already
Okay.
of people completing. We go do an inspection with that removal. You get a free inspection. We go, and then if there is something finished, you can still have a list to complete. And then once it's completed, we have it removed through the corporate officer.
Okay, thanks.
If any councilors want to come check out any of the buildings that I worked with
Got it.
Randy on, you're more than welcome to come.
Further comments, council? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And next up is the similar motion for 220 Spokane Street. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire moves, Councillor McBain seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have a Section 57 notice on title for 210 Cranbrook Street. Again, the motion is that council direct the corporate officer to file a notice with BC Land Titles stating the reasons for the notice. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns, thank you. Councillor Royer seconds. Noted in the report, it's pretty much inspections and permits. Anything further to report on this one?
I don't think so. I just want to make sure that there's no one else here tonight that wants to speak to one of these. Martino, okay, perfect. So,
Okay,
next one.
awesome. Thank you. Okay, council, comments or questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. All right, 214 Norton. So we'll get the motion on the floor and then you can speak. The similar Section 57 notice that council direct the corporate officer to file the notice with the BC Land Title as stated in the report. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor Royer seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking to get all the permits I need. I just haven't had time to do it because I'm busy in the city of Calgary. So as soon as I start my season winds down right around now, so I'll be able to start going through the proper channels.
Just to clarify, might be confusing two issues. Like there's a newer issue at the property that hasn't been permitted so far, but this is actually for your,
Yeah,
your
your cabin is what I want to do.
well, yeah, but this permit is actually for your deck from several years, 2014.
Okay, so
That's still incomplete.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
And like I say, as soon as you complete what's outstanding,
Yeah.
you can have it removed.
no,
And then
for
that's,
sure.
we'll deal with the cabin on a separate.
Yeah, but so I thought that was the survey and all that was to do with this.
That's the second issue.
Yeah,
Just,
so we'll get a variance and
yeah, likely when we go through
yeah.
that permit, but you went through the permit process for your rear deck and this
Yeah.
is what this one's for.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just to clarify.
Okay.
So what needs to happen to clear this particular one then?
There's just some outstanding, a railing here and there and some bolts and some safety issues on the deck. Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
pretty simple, actually.
Okay, council, questions or comments on this one? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks for coming in and speaking to it. Such as it was.
Okay.
All right, next up, another Section 57 notice on title, this time for 728 Rotary Drive. Motion is the same, that council direct the corporate officer to file the notice with the BC Land Title. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you, and Councillor Karen seconds. Anything specific about this one?
Quick remark on this one.
Yeah, I did have correspondence from the owner of this property who said, yeah, he still has not completed the work, but he is working towards it. He didn't have enough time. He thought maybe by May next year. So just as
Okay,
we may see a removal sooner than later.
go ahead, Councillor.
Is there anything structurally that needs to change? It would seem to mention something about just needing engineering, which
Yeah, to explain it, he modified his engineered trusses without permission from the engineer. And amongst other things, but yeah, that he's working with the truss manufacturer as we speak. Yeah.
Which property is that?
It's right across from the school on Rotary. It's kind of looked like a,
McKim?
yeah, sorry, right across from Kim. It's looked
Okay.
like the old lady who lived in the shoe house for a while, people say. It's had like additions over the years, just added on.
Okay,
Um,
okay, cool. Any other questions, council? Go ahead, Councillor Roy.
Andy,
Yeah,
I'm seeing this is great what you're doing. What I've noticed, there's still lots of other houses out in Kimberley that have siding that have been not completed for 20 years. I mean,
correct.
what's going on? Is that going to be another process that we're going to be going through?
The cladding is not necessarily a health, safety, or fire issue unless it's, say, in a wildfire covenant area that would require the siding for protection. So traditionally, yeah, the siding's been kind of left as, unfortunately, one that can be an eyesore. Council, under the community charter, has an avenue to require that if it's considered a community eyesore or needing that repaired. I have had requests previously from mayors and councils on the Warren Banks Apartments, for instance, to kind of speed that process up. And it can be declared an eyesore, and then you guys can proceed that way. But no, it's not title for it's not necessarily a safety liability to the occupant not to have siding.
Yeah, the whole concept of eyesore is, it can be a very broad definition. And I don't know, Maurice, did you want to make a comment on that particular bylaw and what constitutes an eyesore?
So the thing is that our bylaw enforcement policy works with complaints. And so far, the complaints that we've had when we checked, they added open building permits. So if there's a concern with a house, like in people's in their neighborhood, if they want to complain about that property, then we will apply the good neighbor bylaw.
Archibald, say maybe 10 years ago, there was a house that for 20 years neglected, and then the paper was blowing off into neighbors' yards. So there was many complaints, and I did force that owner under our bylaw very loosely to complete that. They were agreed to do it, and I just said, great. And they didn't have an open permit, but I'd say, yeah, most of the buildings you're going to see the 3-year window to complete with 2-year permit and 1-year renewal. There's quite a few buildings like the hotel at the Lights, for instance, they're still under permit and they're slowly making their way around the building. But yeah, there's quite a few buildings with incomplete planning.
So the bottom line, as long as the permit's open, we give them time to get to complete.
Yes. Otherwise, yeah, they ask for more extensions. Yeah, like people with medical emergencies, I've allowed an extra renewal outside of our bylaw at my discretion. And then, with COVID and some financial strains, I've also extended permits for people that are, I will get it done next year. Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, Andy. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
So just quickly, open means like no time frame. Is that correct?
Open means just it's valid. They paid for it and they're up to date and it hasn't expired.
And then your inspections would be based on items that you require at a certain point in time when the stuff
Yeah, it's all laid
completed
out on the permit.
inside
And
the open.
sometimes if they're inactive for 180 days in our permit, in our bylaw, sorry, then yeah, the permit would expire without their knowledge. So sometimes when people are away or they're through the winter season and they don't do any work, I often just overlook that section of the bylaw and, okay, get it done in the spring. And,
Go with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
flexibility.
and then sometimes people just don't cite it for whatever reason. And that avenue is tricky to enforce. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. Further? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have our latest check run in the amount of $3,026,339 to be approved as paid. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Any non-routines to mention? Go ahead, Councillor.
There is only one a non-routine one, which you may notice further down that we are once again paying for the fire truck. So that $480,000, however, that's a wash. Apparently, as they wrote the first check, there was a slightly different company that had the fire truck versus what it should have said truck instead of service or something like that. So they had to reissue that. Yeah, it was a rewrite. They had to rewrite that check. And the other large $1 million item was for project work.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, we have one item of correspondence tonight from Jack Frank, dated November the 20th regarding pickleball. Could I have a mover to accept? Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Royer seconds. I think there was a response that went out to Mr. Frank indicating that that he should contact School District 6 for availability. Although quite frankly, getting gyms during the day which were the hours that he was requesting. It might be a bit of a challenge, but the city really doesn't have facilities to, other than Centennial Hall, to facilitate. Go ahead, Councillor Dunnebeck.
I just wonder if anybody spoke to KS for maybe having a weekend pickleball court that they could generate a bit of funding.
Yeah, they want it during the week, in the morning and in the early afternoon.
Let's meet them halfway and they can play on the weekend.
KIS was included as part of the suggested call. Any further comments? All in favor of receipt? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we do have an in-camera session tonight. Couple of items to deal with. But before we get there, we'll go through our question period, which is open to members of the public to ask questions about anything that was contained in the agenda this evening. Members of the public watching on our YouTube channel can call 800-741-7180. And when prompted, the meeting number is 2770-726-0015. So if you want to call in now, once again, anything that pertains to anything that was on the agenda this evening. And yeah, while we're waiting to see if anybody calls in, let's go around the table with Councillor Matters on things that you have participated in on behalf of the city of Kimberley this last couple of weeks. Councillor McBain, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I had a library board meeting last Thursday, and yeah, it's really good. Some things of note. I think we've sounds like recruitment. They had a kind of a quasi recruitment session at with the Friends of the Library, and it sounds like there's some people interested in becoming board members of the library. And if anybody else is interested while they're listening, certainly can get a hold of us. So that's pretty cool. Get some new folks in there. One thing I did want to bring up though today, I thought was a little bit disturbing. Just some vandalism that they've experienced happening at the library. So short-term solution. It's been primarily focused in the bathrooms, and it's not a gas station. It is a library, so it's something that we're having to take some measures on, trying to limit, just people freely going in and out. So we've thought about adding locks to the doors so that you can have a better sense of who's going in and going out, and just control that a little bit better. But a little bit disheartening to hear that. And yeah, one of the other thing that's the one big hit to the budget moving forward is just the fact that we have to have an audit done for that, and it's just something we have to do, and it's just unfortunate. It's expensive, and it's not like it's not the same type of exercise that we have to go through with the city, certainly, but yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. But other than that, things are going well, and there's I noted last year there was some sizable grants that the library got, working through some of the plans to implement that, but
Awesome.
improved office space and some of those things. So yeah, it's good.
Great. So the audit requirement for the library, is that part of them being a reporting society to the city?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. They're a municipal library under the BC Libraries Act. And as such, their financial statements are incorporated into the cities at the end of the year. So in order to bring their numbers in with ours, they're required to be audited.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that, Jim. Councillor Dunnebeck.
Yeah, I went to the AGM meeting for the Kimberley Underground Mining Railroad Society. They had a fairly decent year. We ran quite a bit leaner than they usually do. They only had one engineer and one conductor. Ridership was down just a little bit. But we did have around 8,000 riders throughout the season. Car show day, we had 368 riders. We got the station patio lengthened so we can cater to handicap people more, that if they're on scooters or have mobility issues, it's there's a lot more room, so it's quite a bit more safe and gives people a nice chance to sort of look at the caboose that was graciously restored by Columbia Basin Trust as well over the last year here. Yeah, it was a good year, and we're always looking for more volunteers as well going into next year. So anybody's interested.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Councillor Cairns.
Not so much this time. So just discussion with the watershed committees, kind of moving along, and attending the Friends of Lowe's Creek meeting tomorrow evening, and Kimberley Nature Park Society coming up next week. So they all
Awesome.
have a lot of great work underway. So looking forward to that.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you will note quite soon that there'll be an application or opportunity for someone for being the manager at the Civic Center. Pardon me, not Civic Center, Center 64, the wrong center. Center 64, they're looking for someone new, so there'll be a job description around and looking for someone. And also, I was happy to be in attendance on the light up evening. And oh my gosh, it's just so cool when those lights go on. All those kids, Santa Claus. It's like a real. There was a couple of years there where we didn't have any kids around here, and it's just so neat to see them. All those little people out there with their pink cheeks and whatnot. It's really special.
Thanks for that, Sandra. Councillor Royer.
I just have one item to talk about. I attended the City of Kimberley staff party on Saturday night, and it was an absolute blast. I mean, it was awesome. And I just want to make one general comment. Those who couldn't make it to the staff party, I'm quite impressed how the ones that were there took hot meals to them at work. So well done, city workers. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, just one item. Met with the chamber. What was it? Last Monday. And the only thing of real note was around their lease agreement, which is expiring, I believe, March. And concerns that they have around the wording of that lease agreement. It looks like it was pretty much just a form lease that they signed at the time. So I'm sure we'll be seeing more about that in the new year.
Awesome. Thanks, Woody. Couple of things of note from me. I was asked to give a bit of a state of the city presentation to Rotary I guess a week ago Wednesday. More or less a few statements about what's going on, and then lots of Q&A. And there was lots of questions. It was a really quite a good session. It's hard to pack a lot into 30 minutes, and a lot got packed into 30 minutes. I also had an opportunity to do a tour of Kimberley with a couple of business folks that came in here looking to establish a fairly substantial business here in the region. They are engaged through the economic development, Darren Brewer at Economic Development in Cranbrook. And whenever there are opportunities that come into Cranbrook, similar here to Kimberley, we invite each other to do the tours of both the communities, because as a region, we're stronger and we look a lot better than we do individually. And this was a tour during the day, and then we had dinner with these guys down in St. Eugene the following evening, or that evening. And this is a pretty big economic development opportunity that they've got. And of course, the big deal for us is that even if it's located in Cranbrook, chances are pretty good that half the people that work there are going to live in Kimberley. So it's in our vested interest to help attract these types of opportunities as well. I'll mention the light up as well, Sandra. It was quite an event this year. It was kind of interesting this year. So all the kids were literally crushing the stage. It was just like a rock concert, waiting for Santa Claus to get there. And when Santa arrived, it came time to do the countdown, the PA system failed. And so our electrician that was over by the switch couldn't hear what was going on. And in fact, I was yelling and told everybody within earshot that we were going to do one practice. We're going to start at 5, go down to, 1, and then the kids are supposed to yell Santa. So they did this, and it was loud. I couldn't believe that many people knew what was going on. And as soon as they said Santa, the lights went on. It was no practice. We ended up getting the lights on, and it was pretty awesome. This past weekend, unfortunately I missed the staff Christmas party, but I was able to attend the fireman's ball. I really appreciate the invitation from the fire department to go to that particular event. And finally, I will just mention that I was also in Nelson at the latest Columbia Basin Trust Board meeting. And the significance for us is really the Columbia Basin Management Plan is finally at the end of the road after about an 18-month or close to 2-year run to get this thing going. It was approved by the board in substantial form. I think based on feedback, there may be a few changes to the document, but at the end of the day, it will be run out in January. And all of those priorities that are part of that are critically important to us in the work that we're doing here in the city. So please stay tuned. That will be coming in early January or in January sometime. Okay, Maurice, do we have any calls coming in?
There is no calls coming in tonight.
How about our gallery here today? Anything in the meeting tonight of note? Go ahead. Yeah, go to the microphone, please.
I just wanted to make one comment about that issue that was raised about vandalism in the library and a potential solution being adding locks to the doors. And just wanted to provide the perspective that the library is one of the only places in the city where folks can go, no questions asked, where they're welcomed, it's open and free. It's basically one of the only free things people can go and do, especially with climate crisis accelerating. It's being used very importantly as a cooling center in the summer and a warming center in the winter. So it's being opened up to folks who are in the unhoused population. So I think it's important to remember that for some people, adding some elements of security and locks might be really discouraging. And that's an important thing to consider when thinking about how to address that, especially if it's not hate speech or bigotry that's included in the vandalism. It could just be kids or folks who are unwell. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, and just so you know too, nobody's gonna. It's not. It's certainly not in the spirit of being unwelcome, and we did talk about the fact that people do use it for a warming and cooling center, and we still completely encourage that. It's more of just it's more of a kid deterrent, like just kind of the silly behavior. But yeah, so it's really nothing more than that. But really appreciate your comments, and we did take that into account. So,
Yep. Okay, could I have a motion to move into closed? Councillor Royer moves, Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? That motion is passed. All right, 2 minutes to get ready. Thanks, folks, for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Yes.